Yeah, so it's about 2 minutes past the hour, 10:32 now, so we can start. So what I have thought of today is to once again start afresh this thing of improper Riemann integral. The definition is such that it's not clear why it has been called improper. I look at it as it is just because it is not part of the original definition. So remember, our definition of Riemann integration is that we are defining integral only on a bounded interval, and the function f is also bounded. Of course, not all such things are integrable, but this is the starting point, and then if upper and lower agree, we say it is Riemann integrable, and so on and so forth, right? So in other words, we don't even discuss anything if one of these two conditions is not given. So in other words, we wanted to look at well, this is not allowed because infinite interval. Then in fact, even this is allowed. This is allowed. The problem is at infinity. But if you look at no, sorry. This is not allowed because as x goes to 0, 1 by x square explodes. So this is not a bounded interval. So 0 to infinity, 1 by x square dx is actually undefined for two reasons. One, at 0 the integral, the function is unbounded, and two, the interval of integration that we want is an infinite interval. In this case, we even 0 to 1 by x square dx is not allowed. And not that whenever I'm saying they're not allowed, that it can be rectified. This is also not allowed. Okay. Now, Suppose A and B are in the extended real line and A is less than B. So we are allowing now A and B to be A to be minus infinity and B to be infinity. Allowing, not always, but okay. And suppose F F is a given function, it may not be unbounded. Nothing is said about now. Suppose if you take any closed subinterval of the open interval AB, now here we are making a slight abuse of notation. Strictly speaking, for a given function, the domain and the range are already defined. We can't change them. But this can be sometimes called that now we are looking at the restriction of the given function f to the subset CD. So we can always restrict, but it's too boring to create a new notation for this. So we continue to use the same notation f. Okay. So f, when restricted to CD, is a bounded function. That's what we mean. Okay. So at least it's defined in the sense we can discuss. We can examine if right, at least our conditions are such that we have a bounded interval. Oh, I should have said C and D are such that closed interval. Okay. Oh yeah, we don't have to say anything because once closed interval C to D is in part of A to B open, that means C is strictly above A and D is strictly below B, which already rules out the possibilities that CD is itself an infinite interval. Maybe a large interval, but it's a finite interval. So C to D is a bounded interval, closed, and f on this is a bounded function. So this integral can be defined, at least. We can explore the upper and lower and so on and so forth. So we can answer if this integral exists. And so firstly, we put a condition that this integrable on every bounded interval, not only the function is bounded, but now that we know that integral can be, is at least we can examine if integral is defined. We now require that this is Riemann integrable on CD. Then we define it's not any conclusion being drawn, because without that, it is not even defined. Okay. So, and it's called improper integral, but no separate notation has been used. So this is all historical. Ideally, by looking at the notation, we should be able to say whether it is Riemann integrable or only improper Riemann integrable. Okay, but this is how the subject has evolved, and so now, once again, what we are allowing the interval to be infinite, possibly, and we are allowing the function to be unbounded. Okay, and then we are considering whether this integral will be defined. So now we can go back to my examples. So here, if we look at some sequence going to 0, so if we look at anything above 0 and anything below infinity, is 1 by x square, we can write down is integrable. So for we can compute, write down and see if the limit exists. And interestingly, the limit as d goes to infinity will be there, but limit as c goes to 0 doesn't work. So for that reason, even this example is by the same does not converge. Okay. However, here this converges. I should also mention that if B is already finite and this is closed up to B, then we don't worry about approximating that. We can go up to that already. So, in other words, special cases. We have in F. So if, for example, and see if this converges, that is the improper integral. Okay. So the improper can happen because at the lower bound, the function is unbounded. As the point as x approaches the lower bound, the function is unbounded. It can be improper because as x approaches the upper bound, it is unbounded. And it could be because the interval is infinite. Any of these reasons. So we can cover, as long as we can cover all of them, okay, we can call that as an improper integral. So in this example, we need not take d less than 1. We can in fact take this d to be 1. In this example, first one, we can't change anything because at 0 it is unbounded and at infinity, of course, it's an infinite interval. But likewise here, in this 0 to 1 square root x, we can just compute c to 1 by square root x dx. And if this converges, we can conclude that the improper integral exists. Any questions about this notion of improper integral?
So just a small clarification on the bounds that, or the intervals that we use. So at the very last slide, you defined f on open A to B, but we're talking about defining the integral on closed A to A and to B. I just wanted to.
Yeah. So. Okay, I think I've just been a bit sloppy, that's all, but we don't have to begin with. Okay, here there is no problem, because our function is defined on entire open interval A to B. Okay. And then here all point is that C to D is a proper subset, and if C to D is defined, at endpoints it really doesn't matter. So here you can as well take close open CD, but then require that this is a bounded interval.
So here it made sense to me. It's a very small thing, like just in the next one that f might not be defined at B. That was the only thing I wanted to ask about.
Just 1 minute here.
Yes, sir.
So, if closed interval CD is inside the open interval AB, then whether you take integral on closed interval CD or open interval CD, it doesn't matter, because you have seen that the changing the value at one endpoint doesn't matter. All, as long as your function is defined, we can still call it as open interval or closed interval, no problem. Okay. Now, so here too, we can suffice us to take that it is open, but require that a bounded interval. And maybe I will redefine the thing, taking out these closed intervals. So we can define this. Okay. So let us I will rewrite the thing, taking off this closed interval thing so that this anomaly doesn't come here.
Okay, sir. Got it, sir.
And till now, just one point that we were, while looking Riemann integrability, you are always talking on a closed bounded interval. But we can still talk about this on open interval AB. Let's just define f to be 0 at A and B and just apply the previous definition. That's it. That point, at that point, changing the thing is not going to matter as long as AB is a finite interval. Okay. So when we have said that the changing the function at a single point doesn't change anything, that allows us to expand the thing to the case where your to begin with is given an open interval. You see, the things like this are important because you would like to talk something like 1 over square root x. Now that is not defined at 0. So you can't always have that, or you have to say the function which is defined as 1 by square root x for x positive and at 0 it is defined something else. But a few points here and there, the integration doesn't matter. So we can allow this. Okay. So we can say that let me go to the next page. So first observation. So to begin with, if you are only given the function on the open interval AB and AB this is a bounded interval. And we had already said that f is a bounded function. Okay. So you extend this function at the endpoints, say call it 0. And so thereby we have extended f to AB. And now we can explore if a to b fx dx is defined as Riemann integral. And why? Because this whether we set it equal to 0, whether you set it equal to 1, whether you set it equal to -1000, none of them will matter. The integral a to b fx dx, if it is defined, that is, if it is Riemann integrable for one value of one assignment of f and fb, it will be Riemann integrable for all assignments of f and fb. That would need not be even equal. One can be -infinity, other one can be infinite, not infinite. One of them could be -1000, the other one can be +1000, no problem. Because we have seen that changing value at a single point doesn't alter the integrability nor the integral of a function. Okay. So now we move away from requiring that to begin with our thing has to be defined on the closed interval. If a function is defined on the open interval and if it is bounded, we can talk whether it is Riemann integrable without bothering as to how we have defined its value at the endpoints. Thanks for pointing this out. Then we can now make separate points. So suppose f from A to R is bounded. Okay. Then I did not bring in n here. So we then define this to be the improper integral. So now we are taking some cases. To begin with, I had started off of the most general case of so here at A there is no problem. Actually it's a bounded function, but just that the interval is infinite. Next we can go to that f is unbounded, but as soon as you go slightly above 0, then it is a bounded function. Sound is. Can everybody turn off their sound? Somebody's sound had come on. Yeah. All right. So again an improper integral. So in other words, we are returning.
What?
Can everybody please put off your sound?
Then. So tell her what is the correct answer. Ask her what is the correct answer.
Yeah. So what I've done is that I've removed this closed business, but that is not a big deal. So to begin with, our interval on which we are considering the integral, two cases, finite, infinite, the function bounded or unbounded. And in either case, we approximate the interval of integration in such a way that these intervals expand to the original interval, and the function f is also bounded on these intervals that we are taking, so that we can define the integral on that intervals and then take the limit as these intervals expand to the original interval, the targeted interval. So the improper integral may not even be defined. Okay. So if you take let's take fx equal to x on 0 to infinity. Well, by our logic, what we should do, we should take 0 to b for 0 less than b less than 1. Of course, on that, this is integrable, Riemann integrable, and integral 0 to b fx dx. So integral is x squared by 2. And so it becomes b squared by 2. But now what happens as b goes to infinity? So not defined even as a improper integral. Okay. So it's not that by, if we restrict the intervals to bounded intervals and on that the function is bounded, then we can always do improper integral. Okay. So let's see if I take minus n to n, what is the integral of this from minus n to n? Right? So it appears that as these intervals expand to minus infinity to infinity, we are in business. Well, not quite. Let's go back and see what have we written earlier. If if for all, I should have said, one sequence Cn and one sequence Dn, this thing happening is not good enough. Only when for all sequences Cn decreasing to A and Dn increasing to B, we have that this alpha and so defined converges to a fixed quantity, then we call that an improper integral. So just making one choice of Cn Dn is not enough. And why is clear, because otherwise the definition can depend on, for some choices it may work, some choices it may not work. So for example, in this example we have taken now, if I take this, the limit is 0. If I take something else, if you take minus n to 2n, the limit will not exist. If you take, or if you take minus n to n plus 1, it still exists. So to come up with something where you can always cook up some offhand I'm unable to do, but with a n increasing to infinity and converging to whatever value you want. So I'm saying that given a alpha, you can always cook up ans increasing to infinity such that integral minus an to an will actually converge to alpha. It is like the series minus 1 power n 1 over n, that you can make it converge to any number you want. So this is similar example that if you are not careful enough in definitions, you can make this integral to be whatever it is depending on what choices of these intervals you have made. And therefore, we avoid this by requiring, which I missed writing earlier, that and this alpha, if there exists a alpha, so alpha should not depend on C and Dn. If for all things it works, and that alpha is independent of our choice of C and Dn. So Any questions? Fortunately, I don't think we spent enough time in differentiation in doing examples. Did we look at the following things such as this we did, f dash for e power x, f dash is equal to f. This we have done, I remember. And
Sir, S of x and C of x.
sorry,
S of x and C of x.
I am not able to hear what you said.
Sir, S of x, we define two functions, S of x and C of x.
Is that what you are meaning?
So he was saying sine and cos.
Oh, sine and oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. So derivative. These examples we have done. Now, so if you look at as an improper, does it exist as an improper integral? And answer would be no, because you're depending on the approximating. So if you look at integral 0 to b for b finite, then this will be we can compute and it will be equal to what it will be. So the derivative of sine is cosine, derivative of cosine is minus sine. So integral of sine will be minus of cosine. So one minus cosine b. Now, as b goes to infinity, we have no control that 1 minus cosine b will converge. And if you happen to choose b suitably, we can make it converge somewhere, but then we can make it converge somewhere else as well. So, no. So, what is f dash? We have done this because composition of two functions, multiplying by a constant that is -1 and then e power x. Both these we have done. So doing the composition rule. So let's do the following. For examples of this kind, I will use tools which you did only in class 11. But if I use something which you cannot prove using things we have done earlier, you should object. You understand? So, for example, I could give you as an exercise, as a question in the exam that show that if fx equal to this, show that f dash x equal to minus e power minus x. And you can do so by doing combining the two things. We have done fx equal to ex we have done, and we have done multiplication by a constant, and we have done composition. Using these three, you can get this. So now We have to get hold of a g such that g dash is f. What is the choice of g we will take? We will take g to be minus of e power minus x. So that integral 0 to b fx dx will be equal to minus e power minus x. And we'll use this notation. This is very classical and useful. You have to take this as 0 to b rather than saying that this is equal to b of x and you take f of b minus f of 0. That also can be done, but this is a notation which you yourself are familiar with. As long as we know what we mean, we have defined it that way now, so that this is equal to and now as b goes to infinity, what do we get? We get that this converges to 0. So this is our first positive result, that now, if some of you are confused with this notation, and you can also write that once you have written that gx you have defined g dash is equal to b, then integral 0 to b fx dx you can write down it as g of b minus and if somebody likes to use this notation that has been classically used in calculus courses early in school, you can do this also. Okay. What can we do? Can we still now, likewise, can we, do you think this is going to work?
I don't think so, sir.
Yeah, because as we go towards minus infinity, it is essentially e power x, and we can carefully see that while this worked, this is not going to work. Integral 0 to infinity e power x dx is not going to work. It's actually, the function explodes to infinity also along with the interval, and it is keeps increasing. So the interval integral is not going to work. Okay. And therefore this minus infinity essentially is just same thing. It's not going to work. Okay. This one. However, this is going to work. Minus infinity to 0 is essentially just for a change of sign, it is 0 to infinity e power minus x dx only. Okay. This time you take a going to minus infinity and evaluate integral a to 0 e power x dx. It will be equal to e power x evaluated at a and 0, which will be equal to 1 minus e power a. And now as a goes to minus infinity, we are fine, it will go again to 1. Now, let's consider this e power minus x square dx. Now, without computing or writing down formula 0 to b, write down and then argue that the limit exists, can somebody think of an approach where we can show that this Riemann integral, this indefinite Riemann integral, improper Riemann integral is going to work?
So actually, I think I was like talking with somebody else about this a few days back. I think what we could do, but I think we've actually done this in class also. We could approximate this by the sums. Like we could take rectangles and compute that finite thing and take the limit of that as we make the partition smaller and smaller.
No, rectangle, where are rectangles coming? We have only one dimension.
Sir, if I may.
Huh?
So I was saying that above 1, x square will always be more than x. So 1 by x. So if we write e to the power minus x square as 1 by e to the power x square, then that should be less than 1 by e to the power x, I think. And then we can show that this is bounded, I think. I mean, it won't go explode to minus infinity in any way. So
yeah, so essentially what you said is roughly correct, but let me this one is my blank pages are done, so I will go and try to get another set of blank pages first. Okay, so the thing to do, as you were suggesting, is something like this. So we look at we know that this improper integral exists. And we also know that for x bigger than equal to 1, right? So first of all, the here is a statement which I make, and you should be able to write out a proof that if integral 0 to 1 fx dx exists, that is, it is Riemann integrable in the usual sense, and if 1 to infinity fx dx exists as improper Riemann integral, then 0 to infinity fx dx also exists as improper integral, as improper Riemann integral. And you can further say that this is improper integral is simply the integral 0 to 1 plus integral 1 to infinity. And the proof is very simple. In both improper integrals, you have to take up to 1 to b and 0 to b, and take some sequence bn and some sequence bn going off to infinity, and then do that. If 1 to bn converges to something, then 0 to bn will also converge to something else, and that gap is exactly 0 to 1 fx dx. So in these considerations, we can always take out a finite interval which we can deal with separately. So now we are looking at these two, right? We know this exists. And in that, one way to argue that what does it mean that if you integrate up to b, then as b goes to infinity, it converges to a constant, and that means Cauchy criteria. So if you look at if you take b and they're after all saying that this integrated up to b, that is converging to a constant. What does that mean? As a function, is b tends to infinity, it converges to a constant. That means it's a Cauchy sequence in the Cauchy sense. So this is what it means. Exercise integral in limit of b going to infinity gb exists if and only if and only if for every epsilon, you can go far away such that after that, take any 2 points, the difference is less than epsilon. Okay. So Cauchy thing is talked about only when you have sequences. In continuous thing, we don't say Cauchy, but it is essentially the same idea. All right. So what this means is that, so what are we going to combine? We are going to say that this is Riemann integrable. So given an epsilon, we can get hold of a b such that after which you take any 2 points, the integral of this is less than epsilon. But this function e power minus x square is always less than or equal to e power minus x. So once you have got hold of this b0 for the function e power minus x, we also have that b to c e power minus x square dx is also less than epsilon. And so what have we shown? That this integral exists. This is improper Riemann integral is defined. So what we have proven is that Hmm. What action of mine makes it jump? So two things are important. One is that f is dominated by g, and integral of g as an improper Riemann integral exists. That is one part. Of course, that is not good enough to tell you that the integral of f as an improper integral will definitely exist, because the integrability of f may be failing on a bounded interval itself. So if for every bounded interval it is Riemann integrable, then the extension is also going to work. That is what it is saying. And that is what we proved just now. To show that this improper integral exists, all we have to do is that you take up to b and show that as a limit of b, you have a constant coming up for f. Okay. And this integral has attracted a lot of attention, though you can't quickly compute it and show as simple techniques. One formula that, I mean, this yeah, square root of pi by 2 is the answer. And you can go on, and how do you compute this? How do you prove this? We are not going to prove this. Computing and proving this is not for our course, at least. In probability theory, this gets used a lot, namely that 1 over square root 2 pi minus infinity to infinity e power minus x squared by 2 dx is equal to 1. And from that, I just wrote down, this is in my hardcore memory, and then from there I wrote down this integral will be just square root pi by 2, because I'm, yeah. So there is a industry of how do you show this. None of them kind of part of what we have done till now. Maybe something, one of you could come out with an argument which uses only what we have done. It's possible, but offhand I can't recall. That proving that this integral is equal to square root pi by 2 or minus infinity to infinity square root 2 pi or this one, yeah. And next year, yeah, I think fourth semester you have a complex analysis course. This is only the first semester. So in the fourth semester complex analysis course, you would have done techniques which could be used to compute this integral, which we can talk about in this course, but can't actually prove this to be so. The formula, close formula, we can't prove right now. At least I can't prove right now using only the tools we have developed till now. Little bit more tools, not complex analysis, but little bit more tools, and we may be able to do it. Okay, so Now, you all have done this in, say, x positive. You all have done this in school. For now, let me just. Using tools that we have done, you should be able to compute this integral, derivative. Anyone? But we have to show the proof using the tools we have done in the class, this course.
Sir, could I try?
Yeah.
Sir, we could square. Okay, given that x is greater than 0, we'll square both sides first.
So f square. Yeah.
That is equal to x.
Yeah.
Now on the okay, I was thinking on the left hand side we'll use the chain rule,
Okay.
and on the right hand side we'll
you
simply
know.
differentiate. But then we would have to prove that f is differentiable in the first place.
Sir, yesterday we did inverse functions, right?
Huh?
Differentiability of inverse function.
Yeah.
We can use that, right?
Yes, you can use that.
Okay.
So integrability of different inverse. Oh, this keeps. Differentiability of inverse function can be used to show. Firstly, this is inverse of the square function. Square function we can prove based on the tools that it is differentiable. Therefore, this is differentiable. And then this argument pointed out just now can be utilized to get that f dash x is equal to, from here what will we get? 1 by 2 fx, right? Yeah. So now, so if I now take the problem where we want to compute or see if does this integral exist as a improper Riemann integral. So we have to take a positive and take a to 1 over square root x dx. Now we know if we take gx to be equal to from our calculations above, if I take gx is equal to 2 times square root x, then g dash x equal to f. So for integral of this will be equal to g at 1 minus g of a. And that is equal to 2 minus 2 square root c, and then limit as square root a, and then limit as a goes to 0. Things work. That goes to 0. Therefore, we conclude that this is equal to 2. So based on your school business, you can come up with a function g such that g dash x is equal to x power alpha. Right? But the point would be to prove that using the tools we have done. So not denotation. Yeah. So you know this in school, you have done this. For alpha bigger than 1, bigger than -1. If gx is this, then g dash x is this, and x positive. Let's say that's when we are taking negative possibilities, then we don't go below 0. So this is all on x positive. So I will not talk about it now. I'm going to leave now. Time is also up. So you think all of you together, one by one, groups, whatever, you think about how will you prove this using what all we have done in the course till now. This is one of the very important things, right? I mean, simplest things. One of the early things you would have been taught in school. And likewise, if you can think of some other formulae that you already have known, but you don't know how to do them using our tools, you tell me. Some of them could be that I will say that no, we can't do it, and some of them will do it. Okay. And the reason for thinking of this problem is that you want to compute this integral. And as you can see from this formula of g that I have written down, if alpha is bigger than -1, this will work because you take a to 1, then eventually it will be a power alpha plus 1. Alpha plus 1 will be positive because alpha is bigger than -1. So the limit will be 0. So now, based on this formula, we know that this integral we can compute. Just like square root x, we can do 1 by square root x power anything which is less than 1. All right. Those who want to leave can leave. Somebody would like to ask a question or two. We can. I'm around for a little bit.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.